Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the second overall spot on Yahoo Fantasy. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my thought process throughout each and every single one of my picks, as well as discussing how the draft is going as a whole and my overall feelings on the draft. But before we get on into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the second overall spot on Yahoo, I would like to ask if you do end up enjoying today's video, you end up having a great time, and you are new to the channel, so please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship, and while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you hit that like button down below because it helps boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to let you guys know that my rankings are available for free, without purchase, on awesomeo.com, as well as my articles that I write every single day. They're both free. Link down below in the description, as well as in the pinned comment. My cheat sheets should be available sometime today. I am very sorry for the delay, but they will be up today. So without further ado, let's get into the draft. So the first overall pick was Christian McCaffrey. That is very, very typical of most drafts. I would say 99.99999% of the time, Christian McCaffrey is going to be the number one overall pick. And at number two, I'm going to go with the cookie cutter pick here. The consensus pick is Dalvin Cook, running back of the Minnesota Vikings. I have him ranked as my number two overall running back as well. While there is definitely some concerns of injury when it comes to Dalvin Cook, because in the past he has kind of continued to hurt the same part of his body and has missed like 2 to 3 games every single year. But at the end of the day, if Dalvin Cook was to have a completely healthy season where he played every single game, this guy could actually be the number one overall running back in fantasy football. So I'm definitely willing to take a small risk, in my opinion, to take him at number 2 overall. After Dalvin Cook came Ezekiel Elliott, followed by Derrick Henry. Now, after the first 2 picks of the draft of Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook basically every single time, that's where the draft really, in my opinion, starts to open up, because every single time at the third pick, I feel like it is a different player, and it's very hard to kind of assume who it's going to be. A lot of the time, it is Derrick Henry or Alvin Kamara, but don't be surprised if someone takes Ezekiel Elliott at 3rd overall in your draft. That is very possible. Same thing goes with Saquon Barkley, as it seems like he is relatively healthy. Now, again, I won't go out here and tell you that Joe Judge believes the same thing that I believe about how he should be good to go for week 1. Maybe they do put that minutes restriction on him in basketball terms, where maybe they don't give him as many touches. That is entirely possible, and I'm not going to rule that out. So I'm still a little bit nervous about Saquon Barkley, but all signs are pointing towards him being good to go, at least very early on in the season. So after I went with Dalvin Cook, came Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, and Ron Jones. So we are seeing the whole first round right now be the running back position through the first 8 picks of the draft. Very interesting to see what happens next, and it is Austin Eckler. So the first 9 picks are running back. Typically, inside of the first round, it is so dominated by the running back position. People like to go ahead and get that workhorse running back early, and then in the 3rd, 4th round, really start to key in on the wide receiver position. Here at the 10th overall pick, we see Travis Kelce. So typically in the first round, like I said, it's very heavily dominated by the running back position. Most times you see anywhere from 2 to 4 non-running backs go inside of the first round. If these 2 players pick running backs here, I would honestly be shocked, because the wide receiver value that's available right now, where you could potentially get 2 of the 3 top receivers on these picks, like say Adam over there at 12 takes Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs, or takes Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, or Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs, depending on how they rank those players. That could be a very, very solid start to their team. So after Kelce, we see Najee Harris. Very, very interesting, followed by Devontae Adams. I could honestly see that coming from about a mile away at this point. While I don't say that any of these running backs are obviously bad, right, because they're second round running backs, they're going to be pretty solid, but there's definitely some risk with Jonathan Taylor, but it seems like that risk is really starting to go away, as Carson Wentz appears to be good to go to start in week number 1 of the 2021 NFL season, which is going to be very, very good for Jonathan Taylor. The only other risk would be Quentin Nelson, but it appears that he is on a similar timetable to return with Carson Wentz, so maybe he doesn't play week 1, but it shouldn't be too late on to the season until Jonathan Taylor gets his start. So I think he is getting, honestly, really underdrafted in this draft. Surprising that Najee Harris went ahead of Jonathan Taylor. We have seen Najee Harris get a whole lot of use in these preseason games, though, so I wouldn't be surprised if Najee Harris was a top 10 running back in 2021. After Devontae Adams came Tyreek Hill, Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs, and Joe Mixon. Very surprising to continue to see the hammering on of the running back position, but it is a-okay because here, sitting at the second overall spot here, once it comes back to us at 23 overall, I'm pretty excited to see which wide receivers are available because there's a pretty good shot that my wide receiver number 4 in Calvin Ridley is still going to be available at the end of the second round. As I say that, of course, I ended up jinxing it. He goes right there after Joe Mixon. Calvin Ridley, to me, is one of those wide receivers that I honestly believe should be talked about in that top 3 wide receiver conversation because of the sheer amount of volume this motherfucker is going to be receiving game in and game out in Atlanta. It is honestly going to be insane. They are a team that passes at a very, very high rate because of how bad the defense is, and I think that is really going to help out Calvin Ridley a whole ton in 2021. After that, we see DK Metcalf come off the board. Now, I have kind of already stated my case a million times on my channel against DK Metcalf. Now, I don't think this guy is a bad wide receiver. This dude was built like a fucking Greek god. This dude is basically the perfect build of a wide receiver. He's jacked, he's huge, and you know, he's fast. He's very, very fast. So that's perfect. But he is on a team that, to me, is going to try to run the ball a lot more than they did last season. And that is really going to hurt Mr. DK Metcalf. And also, if Tyler Lockett gets a little bit more consistent, we did see last year when Lockett was on fire, Metcalf kind of shriveled up. And when Metcalf was on fire, Lockett kind of shriveled up. So if Lockett is being more consistent this season, then it's likely that we could end up seeing DK Metcalf really struggle. After Metcalf came D-Hop, Justin Jefferson, and A.J. Brown. So we see a run at the wide receiver position, which leaves some solid running backs to fall to us inside of the second round. I think that is the way we are going to lean. Clyde Edwards-Helaire suffers slight ankle sprain. Right now, nothing appears to be super dangerous with this situation, so I'm fine taking him. But again, this is something you need to monitor. You need to monitor these injuries. If it comes out that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be missing a couple of games, or this is a more serious injury than was earlier on reported, then you should go ahead and fade Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But right now, based upon the knowledge that we have, I'm fine taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. If you want to make the argument that, hey, it is a little bit too risky for me, I would understand that as well, and I would happily take a guy like Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, any of those guys, CeeDee Lamb even in that range. But I felt like the running back value there of Clyde Edwards-Helaire was very, very good because of the run that occurred at the wide receiver position. After we went with Clyde Edwards-Helaire came CeeDee Lamb, followed by George Kittle. So we are sitting in the third round here, and Kittle went ahead of Darren Waller, which I disagree with. So the question is, should we go wide receiver here or go tight end? To me, I think that a lot of people really are undervaluing Darren Waller at this point. I think he should easily be a second round pick, but he doesn't end up getting picked in the second round in a majority of drafts. I believe he is the tight end that is going to be competing very heavily with Travis Kelce this season. Travis Kelce, obviously the unanimous tight end number 1. He is on an offense that is super duper efficient with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL on the most high octane, probably offense in the NFL. They're going to be a team scoring a whole shit ton of points, and obviously Travis Kelce is going to be a big part of that. But Darren Waller, while he's not on a team like the Chiefs, the Las Vegas Raiders still have a fine quarterback who is going to be feeding the rock aggressively to Darren Waller. So I am very, very excited to get Darren Waller onto my team this season, and that's why I take him in a lot of these mocks. So after we went ahead and got Darren Waller, came Allen Robinson, followed by David Montgomery. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit off in this video. My nose is mucho stuffy, but you know, it's like a Jordan flu game type of deal. Still have to record the videos to try to help you guys, so I apologize for that. After David Montgomery came scary Terry McLaurin. What's funny is I was about to say that through the first 3 rounds, really nothing absurd has happened. Typically, inside the first 3 rounds, while things typically are pretty consistent, sometimes someone or multiple people end up making these fucking insane in the membrane picks, and that did just happen with Zach selecting T.J. Hockenson inside of the 3rd round. Now, if you guys watch my videos, I am very, very high on T.J. Hockenson. I will continue to talk T.J. Hockenson up, but why I like T.J. Hockenson is because I think that he's going to be pretty solid and has a chance to finish inside the top 3 at the tight end position, and he typically goes in like the 5th or the 6th round. The reason why I like him so much is because of his ADP, where he's going. Inside of the 3rd round is way too high of a price to pay for Hockenson. And the reason why it's too high of a price is because even if you really wanted Hockenson, you're thinking, you know what, I need to get Hockenson on my team. why not wait until next round and maybe reach up one round and select him in the 4th round, because there's probably a 99.99999% chance that TJ Hawkinson is available inside of the 4th round. After we went with Hawkinson, or after the Zach went with Hawkinson, we see Keenan Allen come off the board, followed by Chris Carson, J.K. Dobbins, Patty Mahomes, and Kyler Murray. So in the 3rd, 4th round is typically when someone is going to bite on the quarterback position. I am not someone who is going to stand here and advocate for drafting a quarterback early, but I understand why people do it, because it is one of the safest picks you could make in the early rounds. I really advocate for inside of the first 4 rounds to keep it as safe as possible, to wrap that metaphorical condom over your team. You do not want it to be risky at all. You want to keep it as safe as possible, and then after the 4th round, then you can start doing all types of crazy shit. But early on in the draft, the best thing to do is not reach on players. It's to keep it consistent early on, and taking a guy like Patrick Mahomes, a Kyler Murray, is a safe move, but in my opinion, I'd rather wait until like the 5th round, because there's a pretty solid chance that while maybe Mahomes won't be there, you could still get a guy like Josh Allen, a Kyler Murray, obviously not in this case, or you could get Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott. Now, obviously, there is some risk with Dak Prescott at this point. I do understand that, but right now, I am not in full-on Mayday, you need to run away from Dak Prescott. I'm just more in the maybe be a little bit cautious and understand the risk when you are selecting the player. So after Kyler Murray came Darrell Henderson, followed by Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, and DeAndre Swift. Now, DeAndre Swift is definitely a player that I am much lower on than consensus, but I do definitely see the upside that comes with DeAndre Swift. The reason why I see this upside is because he is on a team that is going to be bad. So while he may not be getting a lot of rushing attempts on the Detroit Lions, he could be seeing a whole ton of dump-offs, which is obviously very valuable for a running back in PPR and half PPR formats. Now, the reason why I'm going up against DeAndre Swift and being a little bit more cautious is because Dan Campbell continues to say that, hey, we want to do a 1A, 1B system here with Swift and with Jamal Williams, and I believe that Jamal Williams will be a little bit more involved than people believe. DeAndre Swift is still a fine pick inside of the 4th round, but sometimes I see him go inside the 3rd round, and to me, that is definitely a little bit risky. After DeAndre Swift came Josh Allen, followed by Mark Andrews, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, and Robert Woods. So maybe TJ Hawkinson would not have fallen to Zach, so maybe he made the correct move if he really wanted TJ Hawkinson in the 3rd round, but I still really believe that that is a reach. After Tyler Lockett came Robert Woods. Tyler Lockett is one of those players that I do not really understand why you'd want to draft him inside of the 4th round. To me, he is a player that comes with immense risk, and he is the kind of player that will absolutely win you your week. You play him in a couple of weeks in the season, this dude is going to absolutely shit stomp your opponent. I'm talking about a guy that could drop 40 plus points in any given game, but there's also going to be those games where he puts up straight doozies, where it is a certified dud, maybe even a goose egg of a game where he does nothing, but the upside is also there, but that's not really who I'm looking for inside of the 4th round. After Robert Woods came wiki DJ Moore and Miles Sanders coming off the board here. So looking at running back or wide receiver at this pick, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Myles Gaskin. So we are not going to end up going running back, and we are going to go wide receiver with Julio Jones. After we went ahead and drafted Julio Jones, I will explain my thought process behind that after we make our next pick. Dak Prescott comes off the board, and then Josh Jacobs. So right there is when you definitely have to take Lamar Jackson over Dak Prescott. To me, Dak is definitely a reach at that point with the injury concerns that he has right now. So inside of the 5th round here, I'm going to go ahead and get Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin is one of those running backs that I have been banging the drum for all offseason long, talking about how Myles Gaskin is in a situation to succeed and to be a potential top 12 running back in fantasy football. And a lot of people have been dismissing Myles Gaskin. They've been talking about how this is going to be a committee. Malcolm Brown's going to be ultra involved. Salvon Ahmed's going to get his touches. And I agree. Salvon Ahmed's going to get his touches. Malcolm Brown will as well. But Myles Gaskin is by far and away the most talented running back on this roster. In preseason, in that first game, it was a doozy for Myles Gaskin. I think I've used that word twice inside of this video. A very good vocabulary SAT word for you people at home, but Myles Gaskin looked like shit in the first game. He wasn't really getting many touches with the first team. People went into full-on panic mode. I'm talking about fucking Mayday, run out of the room, shit yourself type of deal if you have to draft Myles Gaskin. But it turns out, just like I believed, that he was going to be very involved. In the second game, he rips the Packers defense a new asshole. He absolutely eviscerated that defense, scored not one, but 2 total tugs in the game, got multiple receptions. This is a guy that could easily be a top 12 running back going inside of the 5th round in most drafts. The reason why we went with Julio Jones is because Julio Jones brings a whole lot of safety to your team with the upside of also being a top 12 wide receiver. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of worried about Julio Jones because, hey, he's on the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are a much more run-heavy team than he's been on in the past with the Atlanta Falcons, and that is 100% true. I completely agree with the fact that the Falcons are a much less run-heavy team when compared to the Tennessee Titans, but you don't trade for Julio Jones if you don't plan on feeding this guy the rock. If you trade for Julio Jones and you don't plan on throwing the ball, the Tennessee Titans should be relegated from the National Football League like it's a soccer league and there's actual relegation. That's what should end up happening if they don't throw the ball to Julio Jones. They are going to. Julio Jones is one of the best wide receivers pound for pound in the National Football League. So I will continue to stand here, scream, or sit down, I guess technically we're sitting in a chair, but to sit down here and explain that Julio Jones is a very safe pick with the upside of being a top 12 wide receiver. Now, we only have one wide receiver on the team, but that's because I think the wide receiver position is relatively deep, and now that we have Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Myles Gaskin, I don't really feel the need in the 6th, 7th round to go ahead and draft another running back so we could really hammer down in the wide receiver position. We also already have a locked and loaded tight end on our team in Darren Waller, who, like I said, I believe could really be the #1 tight end in fantasy football this season. So I feel like we have a very balanced roster at this point, and going with 2 wide receivers in a row here does look very good. Jamar Chase, if this shows it here, Chase could lose early season snaps to Auden Tate. That's not going to happen. You already know that's not going to happen, but Jamar Chase has looked terrible. Terrible to the nth degree. Terrible to the, maybe is that the saying? The nth degree, the 9th degree? I don't even know what the saying is, but this guy has looked down tremendous. He looks like complete and utter dog shit. In the preseason games, the guy can't hold on to the ball. In practice, he can't hold on to the ball. There's been reports that he can't get separation. Jamar Chase, if you cannot get separation up against the Cincinnati Bengals defense, pal, you are going to struggle up against defenses that have some actual fucking skill. Now, do I think Jamar Chase could turn it around? 100%. This guy was one of the best receivers in college football in 2019. In 2020, he opts out. I think that's where the kind of slowdown has become. The rust has entered his game. It just has to have. There's no reason why he wouldn't be able to get separation from Bengals corners. If that was the case, he's going to be fine this year. But I think where he's going, there is certainly a risk for a very, very slow start out of a receiver that you are drafting inside of the 6th round, which to me is definitely a risk when you're taking a guy in the 6th round who, you know, may not be very good for the first couple of weeks of the season. I assume he's going to turn it around, right? All signs point towards Jamar Chase being able to turn it around, but I definitely would prefer drafting his teammate, Mr. Titty Boy T. Higgins, ahead of him. So we're back up on the board here, and we are definitely looking wide receiver. The first receiver we're going to go with here is Kenny Golladay. Now, Kenny Golladay is banged up. He does have that injury, questionable type of thing next to his name, but I believe he will be fine this week. He will be in practice. He's going to be okay. If he's not, if there's a setback, please, then worry. But right now, based upon everything that we know, I don't think there is any reason to worry about Mr. Kenny G spot, Mr. Kenny Golladay in 2021. So we're going to go ahead and slide myself all the way onto the left side of the screen. Can see the draft board better. I do apologize that I was blocking the right side of the screen earlier on in the video. So we're back up on the board here in one pick. Very interested to see who this lad takes. He takes Melvin Gordon and Robbie Anderson. So we are going to be going wide receiver here. We're going to go ahead and get Jerry Jeudy. I have him ranked ahead of Courtland Sutton. I think Courtland Sutton could easily outscore him. Honestly, these are 2 wide receivers that I am very heavily invested into this season. But with the injury to Courtland Sutton, there were a lot of reports of him starting off slow in camp. But it seems like basically all the videos out of training camp is that Courtland Sutton is maybe not 100%, but he's like 95% of the way there. He is not having any struggle playing up against the corners like he was earlier on in preseason, so I'm still confident in Courtland Sutton, but here we will lean with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had a very up and down last season. He was getting so many targets, but he was dropping the ball left and right, and I believe had Courtland Sutton have stayed healthy last season, that we would have seen a relatively not even a relatively better season out of Jerry Jeudy, a lot better rookie season out of Jerry Jeudy, because he basically got thrown in there as the wide receiver #1 on the Broncos just 1 week into the season because Courtland Sutton got hurt. I think had he been riding behind Courtland Sutton, Courtland Sutton was receiving the better coverage, like the better corner on every team was covering Courtland Sutton. I think Jerry Jeudy could have had a much better season, and Drew Lock looked very bad at points last season. Horsecock Drew Lock looked like one of the most confusing quarterbacks last season. And the reason why I say it was kind of confusing is because he'd have these games where he literally just demolished the defense, where he was going apeshit on these defenses. And then the next game, this guy starts off slow and he does nothing. I think Drew Lock's going to have a much better season this season. And guess what? If things go sideways, if things go wrong with Drew Lock, then you know what's going to happen? He gets taken out of the game and they throw Teddy Bridgewater into the game. And then basically everything is fixed. So I am very excited about Jerry Jeudy this season. I think he definitely had a bad rookie season compared to what I believed he could do. But I think in 2021, he's going to be turning things around. After we went with Jerry Jeudy, we could see Tampa Bay Tom Brady come off the board, followed by Aaron Rodgers, Robert Tonyan, Golden Tate. Golden Tate. What? Golden Tate inside the 7th round. What a pick. What a pick. After Golden Tate, we see Logan Thomas, Jalen Hurts, Raheem the Dream Mostert, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, and Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert seems to be falling very, very far in drafts. Last night, in a draft that I did with my friends that is going to be up on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow, a recap of the draft, I got Goedert, I think, in like the 10th or 11th round. People seem to be very, very much putting too much weight into Zach Ertz. Now, Zach Ertz being there definitely makes Dallas Goedert's upside of being a top 5 tight end not the best, right? Not very good. Zach Ertz is still going to be used, but Dallas Goedert, to me, now obviously in the 7th round, that's a fine price to be paying for him, but like in the 9th, 10th round, where he seems to be falling in a lot of these drafts, I am very excited to get Goedert onto my team at that draft price. After Goedert came Ryan Tannehill, Noah Fant, and Ronald Jones. So let's look at the positions drafted grid. So we don't have a quarterback. Every single other team in this draft has a quarterback right now. So I think we should be fine to wait for potentially another round or two. But we want to make sure that we get our quarterback before people start gobbling up second quarterbacks, because a lot of times that does end up happening. I'm definitely not an advocate for drafting 2 quarterbacks. See, Zach just did that, drafting Trevor Lawrence. To me, that is a pretty bad decision. Who does Zach have on his team? Let's see. Before we really heavily judge him, yeah, he has Justin Herbert, and then he drafts Trevor Lawrence. When are you ever going to play Trevor Lawrence over Justin Herbert? I don't know. Why are you drafting 2 quarterbacks on the same bye week? I genuinely have no fucking idea. That makes absolutely no sense. So we are going to be back up on the board in 2 picks after we saw Noah Fant. Ronald Jones came off the board, followed by Mike Licky, Ahmad Gesicki, Harrison Butker, LA defense, Trevor Lawrence, and the Washington football team defense. So we do have a very balanced roster right now. If you take a gander onto the right side of the screen, we have Julio Jones, Kenny Golladay, wide receiver, as well as Jerry Jeudy. We also have 3 running backs in Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Myles Gaskin. And we have 1 tight end. So here we're open to really go wide receiver or running back at this spot. Looking at the running backs, I'm not ultra in love, but I do like Michael Carter a lot. I think a lot of people are very much overreacting to the fact that Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson are starting on the first team in the preseason. No shit. No shit. They're the veterans on the team. They're going to start ahead of him, but eventually I believe Michael Carter will take over and be the starting running back of the Jets. And if Zach Wilson looks good like he did in that preseason game this weekend, then maybe, just maybe, this is going to be a very solid offense. And drafting Michael Carter will be one of the better late-round decisions in draft. I'm going to continue to hammer onto that thought process. I don't think week 1, week 2, maybe even until like week 6, you will want to start Michael Carter. But eventually, he will leapfrog over those other career backup running backs and become the guy in New York for the Jets and have very solid value inside the 9th, 10th round where you can get him right now. Looking at wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Deebo Samuel. So right here is where I'm fine taking Jamar Chase. He is falling down the board because of all the news that is coming out of training camp, all of the preseason footage where he basically looks like complete and utter dick. And that's good because maybe he won't end up paying off, right? Maybe he struggles all season, but my bet is that Ja'Marr Chase will eventually figure it out. And as a bench wide receiver for me, I'm fine taking that risk, especially inside of the 9th round. But I want to warn you guys, in a lot of drafts, people are going to end up still taking him in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round. And to me, maybe not in the 8th round, but in the 6th, 7th round, that is definitely a very high price to pay for a wide receiver that I am not ready to rely on in week number 1. Real quick before we get back into the breakdown of this draft, I would like to ask if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Again, not only is it free, I put out content every single day to really try to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championships. Most days, there's 2 videos plus on this channel. I try to work my hardest to make sure that we get out videos every single day to help you guys win your league. So please make sure that if you do enjoy, to hit that subscribe button. Also, please make sure to hit that like button. It really does help me out a ton. And if you guys use Twitter, I tweet a lot. Now, it's not always about fantasy football. A lot of it is about stuff in my life that I like to talk about as well. So please follow me on there at NotoriousFNTSY. I would really appreciate that. I really do like talking with you guys on Twitter as well as in the comment section down below. So after we went ahead and drafted Ja'Marr Chase, came Justin Tucker, the fucker, Young Ho Koo, Greg Zuerlein, Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Bass, Pro Shop, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Tampa Bay Bucks defense, David Johnson, Kansas City defense, Jason Sanders, Irv Smith Jr., and Will Lutz. So we're seeing a lot of defenses and kickers go in the 8th, 9th round. I want to continue to cement into your brain by just smacking you with this upside the head with me saying this in every single mock draft. Please, wait on defense, wait on kicker. Now, especially right now when you're drafting, training camp isn't over, preseason isn't over. Don't even draft a defense. Don't even draft a kicker. You can go ahead and just, pick up an extra player on your bench and then eventually pick up a defense for week number 1 after. Same thing goes with a kicker. Sometimes if you really like a defense later on in the draft, for instance, I really like the Denver Broncos because of their early on season schedule. And then after that, I like to go ahead and stream defenses. So they play the Jets, Jags, and Giants in some type of order. I think it's Giants, Jags, Jets, if my memory serves me correct. I believe that is their starting schedule. That is a defense that I am very heavily invested into this season. I'm going to be looking to get in a lot of drafts. So maybe you want to make sure you get that defense. But definitely on kicker, I think you can definitely wait to pick one up off the waiver wire and go ahead and snag one of those upside late round running backs to add to your team in case there was an injury to happen to any of those main running backs in preseason or in training camp. So our roster right now, we do not have a quarterback. We got Julio Jones, Kenny Golladay, our 2 running backs are Cook and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, tight end Darren Waller, flex Myles Gaskin, and we have wide receiver Jerry Jeudy as well as Ja'Marr Chase on the bench as well as Michael Carter. So here with one of these picks, we definitely have to go quarterback because, like I said, people did start already taking backup quarterbacks, so I'm definitely not trying to take that risk. We're going to go with Joe Burrow. Again, I do not believe he's going to be 100% week 1, and maybe he struggles for the first 2-3 games this season, but I think once this guy is on and once this offense is passing at the amount of volume that I believe they're going to pass at week in and week out, there's really no stopping Joe Burrow from potentially being like a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. If they're throwing a lot and he also starts to run the ball more. Now, again, maybe he won't run the ball as much this season because he's nervous about getting hurt. I completely understand that, right? Because he tore his ACL, his PCL, his MCL. Things are going to worry him a little bit. It's a psychological thing with injuries, but I believe once he gets over that, he is going to be great in 2021. So we're back up on the board here, looking either running back or wide receiver. Definitely going to go wide receiver with the running backs that are available. And here we're going to take our shot on Mr. Devonta Smith. He is a wide receiver that I have been drafting aggressively in these fantasy football drafts because while I believe that he is a rookie, and sometimes rookie wide receivers do struggle a little bit early on. We've already seen Ja'Marr Chase have that struggle, and the fucking regular season hasn't even happened, but I believe that Devonta Smith could easily be the number 1 target in the Philadelphia Eagles offense, and you are getting him inside of the 11th, 12th, 13th round in these drafts, and I understand there is some risk, right? Some people believe that since this guy's built like a fucking skeleton from Minecraft, that the guy is going to end up getting hurt. He's built like the Slender Man from that video game. He is just not built like a typical wide receiver, but hey, he's still really good, and there are no signs that based upon his build, he is more subject to get hurt. So I believe that Devonta Smith should be able to have an excellent 2021 NFL season, and I am very, very much excited to get him on my team at this draft price. After Devonta Smith came Will Fuller, Kenyon Drake, and Jamal Williams. So we're definitely going to have to go ahead and get at least one more running back on the roster. Because my rule of thumb for fantasy drafts, again, you don't have to necessarily follow it to an exact T, but it is to draft more running backs than wide receivers onto your roster if the roster positions are set up to do that. Now, if you have to start maybe 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes every single week, then maybe you want to draft more wide receivers than running backs, because you could potentially be starting 5 wide receivers every single week. But in a normal build where it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex, typically I like to have more running backs on my bench, because it's very easy to say just week 3. Your receiver gets hurt, you can go on the waiver wire and literally look at 50 options in a 12-team league that could score 15 points on the week, that could have a big game. But at running back, the odds that you can find that in a 12-team league is very, very low, in case, or unless, of course, there is an injury to the running back and the backup running back is available on the waiver wire. After we went with Devontae Smith, came Will Fuller, Kenyon Drake, Jamal Williams, Elijah Moore, Michael Gallup, Latavius Murray, Corey Davis, Curtis Samuel, Laviska Shenault, Tony Pollard to close out the 11th round. The 12th round opens with Mike Williams, followed by Trey Lance, Kirk Cousins. You like that? Michael Pittman Jr., Jarvis Landry, Matt Ryan, Jake Uptown Funk You Up, Marvin Jones, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Very interesting to see Lance go that early. Not even early, I would say. Just going in the 12th round. I think Lance has at the quarterback position, but between him and Fields, I think he has the longer odds to start week number 1. I would think Justin Fields has a better chance of starting earlier on in the season, but Trey Lance has looked relatively good in preseason thus far. Here, we're definitely going to do a slight, now, you know what, we're going to handcuff Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook could end up getting hurt again. He does have that history of getting injured, so if he was to get hurt, we have Alexander Mattison, who we could throw in basically whenever he gets hurt, and he has the potential to finish as a top 12 running back week in and week out if Dalvin Cook was to be injured, because Alexander Mattison is a true handcuff. He is one of those guys where if the starting running back gets hurt, you know you can throw him in and expect big points. Same thing goes with a guy like Latavius Murray with the Saints. If Kamara was to go down, Latavius Murray could legitimately drop 30-plus points any given week. If Zeke was to go down, Tony Pollard is a guy that could do the exact same thing. Those are why those guys are really the premier handcuffs at the position. After Alexander Mattison came Phillip Lindsay, followed by the Buffalo Bills defense. We're back up on the board here, and we're probably going to go with yet another running back. And did Phillip Lindsay come off the board? Yeah, I read his name. Didn't even enter my brain that he got drafted. That does suck. I'm going to go with J.D. McKisson-Titties here at this pick. J.D. McKissick is one of my favorite late-round running back targets, as I believe that he is going to be seeing the field a lot more than a lot of the Antonio Gibson truthers believe. Now, I am someone who really likes Antonio Gibson, and I believe that he could have a true 3-down role in this offense, but it doesn't feel like Riverboat Ron wants to fully commit to him with that just yet. After we went with J.D. McKissick came Baker Mayfield, Hollywood Brown, Adam Troutman, Josh Palmer, Hunter Henry, Michael Thomas in the 13th round. Very solid value there, in my opinion. McCole Hardman, Janu Smith, Denver Broncos defense, Evan Ingram, Daniel Jones, Daniel Carlson, Rashad Penny, and the New England Deflatriots. So, like I was saying earlier, I think Trey Lance is a fine pick inside of the 11th, the 12th round of these drafts. But I do believe that Justin Fields, honestly, should get the edge to start potentially earlier on in the season. I think the San Francisco 49ers are set up in a way that Jimmy Garoppolo could win a bunch of games at the start of the season, and maybe we don't see Trey Lance at all. Now, I wouldn't take that bet, but I think it's possible, whereas I think there's a much higher chance that Andy Dalton ends up not being the greatest, and they pull him maybe a couple of games into the season, and then we see Justin Fields debut. If you're taking a second quarterback in drafts, I would definitely advise taking maybe a more risky one, going with that upside that potentially a guy like Trey Lance or Justin Fields could have over taking a guy like Daniel Jones, who, if I'm being honest with you, I don't really see any chance of finishing as a top 5, top 12 quarterback, but a guy like Justin Fields, Trey Lance could easily finish top 5 or top 12 on a points per game basis. So we're back up on the board here. Again, I don't really advise you guys to take a defense or a kicker when we are this early on in draft season. Not really super early on, right? We're in the 23rd of August. It's getting close to crunch time when a lot of people are doing their drafts. People may have already done their drafts, but until preseason is over, until training camp is over, I'm fine loading up on the running back position or extra wide receivers instead of taking a kicker or a defense. So here we're going to get Darnell Mooney inside of the 14th round. I have no idea why he fell this far. Darnell Mooney is the clear number 2 wide receiver on the Chi-Town Bears. Now again, how great will he look with Andy Dalton? Probably exactly how he did last year with Kissin Titties Mitchell Trubisky and with 9-inch Nick Foles. He'll probably look just about okay, but once Justin Fields takes over, man oh man is the upside for Darnell Mooney really high. So we're going to go running back with this last pick here, and we're just going to be hunting for some potential upside. I believe that if Myles Gaskin was to go down, that Salvon Ahmed would be the guy. We've reached the maximum amount of running backs you can draft, you know? Why can you only draft 6 running backs on Yahoo? I have no idea. So we're going to draft another wide receiver here instead. We're going to go with the upside of, maybe we'll go with a little bit more safety, but also a guy that could finish pretty highly at wide receiver is Cole Beasley. Now, again, there's nothing sexy about drafting Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley's not going to be a guy that drops 40-plus points in a single game, but he is a wide receiver that is relatively safe week in and week out and does have the upside to be pretty solid every single week. I don't really see that 40-plus point potential, but if he scored 20, 25 points in a couple of games this season, I really wouldn't be surprised with how good the Buffalo Bills offense should be this season. I'm going to go ahead and slide myself all the way back to the right. We just went on flight right there because I lifted myself up too high. So our final team here in the draft is Joe Burrow as our starting quarterback. Our 2 wide receivers are Julio Jones and Kenny Golladay. Our running backs are Dalvin Cook and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Our tight end is Darren Waller. Our flex is Myles Gaskin. Our bench is comprised of Jerry Jeudy, Michael Carter, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Alexander Mattison, J.D. McKissin, Titties, Darnell Mooney, and Cole Beasley. We don't have a defense and kicker because, again, you could just go ahead and wait until right before week 1, cut 2 of those players you don't want, add a defense, and add a kicker. So thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Again, not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. Make sure you hit that like button down below. I love you guys all. Make sure to also check out the rankings as well as my articles linked down below in the description. I love you guys all so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, good boy.